Hello, this is my Dragonknight support DPS build. This is not a Zen Kosh build, this is my Power of Zen build. I do not use or recommend Alkosh. And the reason why is because Alkosh has become a little bit obsolete because it's no longer needed to strip 6,000 armor from the bosses. Most builds in the trial groups now are running a very high amount of penetration without sacrificing damage. I'll go over that a little bit more in detail when I do my Arcanist uh, DPS build. It's a little bit easier to show that on that build for a couple of reasons. This build is a little bit different than the other DPS builds in my group because it doesn't have the Velothi mythic, and I'm doing a little bit of compensation because this is the only team member that needs a little bit of help by changing from a dagger to a mace, a sharpened mace. And the reason why that is important or helpful is when you go to the dual wield setup, the twin blades will give you penetration for a mace, and then the sharpened trait gives you more penetration as well. So that will help you get your Dragonknight penetration up into the range it needs to be so that they're not under pen in your trials group. So I have all 64 attribute points into stamina, and then I run the Thief Mundus Stone. And the food that I use on my Dragonknight is the Candied Jester's coins. And the reason I do that is because Dragonites tend to use more Magicka in their toolkit. And so I still wanted the Big Mac stamina bar, but I also still need to have the Magicka recovery to sustain on this build. And so let's go over the gear sets that I am running. I have a dagger and a mace of Zen's. I have a front bar Nirnhoned Zen's dagger. That's completely normal for most builds. Then I have a back bar perfected Maelstrom Inferno staff, a medium one-piece Slamcraw for the critical chance buff. Powerful Assault is on my body. I know that's different. Most people use Alkosh. I don't do that. Powerful Assault with the Spaulder of Ruin pairs very well, and I'll go over that in a minute. And then I have Bloodthirsty weapon damage jewelry from the Zen's Redress set. So in case you don't know where these sets come from, Powerful Assault comes from Imperial City. It's listed here. The Spaulder of Ruin is a mythic. You'll have to collect the leads to obtain that. A lot of times healers and tanks wear that mythic. I don't agree with that because it drains resources and it's harder for those roles to do what they need to do if you're having a drain on your resources. With Dragonknights, when they proc an ultimate, they restore back to full based on the Battle Roar passive right here. For every ultimate you spend, you get resources back. So it's very easy to run the Spaulder of Ruin on a Dragonknight. You can also obtain resources back from proccing the combustion passive. When you apply burning or poisoned to enemies, you obtain 1,000 resources back every 3 seconds. And of course, you can always proc the Undaunted passives by popping a synergy. So those 3 tools there are helpful to run the Spaulder of Ruin Mythic. So how do I run this build and what does it do for the group? Well, my skill that I'm proccing Powerful Assault on the front bar is Caltrops. It's just a hair under being fully upgraded, so when it is fully upgraded it will last for 15 seconds, which in turn lines up perfectly with how long the Powerful Assault buff lasts. So when I go into combat, you can see on my bar there, that green buff right there, and you can reset this before cooldown. There's no cooldown for this set. As long as anybody is in this red ring, they are going to get that buff up to 5 group members. So all I have to do is cast this twice and it will hit my entire group. So that's part of my rotation. Additionally, I'm running Ingenious Weapons and Engulfing Flames and Stagger as my spammable. So with this build, without being buffed by anybody else, I can drop my weapon damage glyph there, get my Powerful Assault buff up, and proc my Mountain's Blessing. I'm sitting at 7,000 weapon damage. Now, I'm not running a weapon damage glyph on here, or excuse me, weapon damage potion, because of two things. This already gives me the spell power, weapon power. Then this, regardless of bar, I'm getting the prophecy buff. So I can run tripods on this build to help get my recoveries back as well, in addition to all those synergies. So my front bar, I have the Caltrops to proc Powerful Assault. This is giving me the critical chance buff of Prophecy and Savagery. This is the Stagger buff that will buff group weapon damage by 195 if you keep all 3 stacks up. This is meant to have an off-balance proc if it needed, but it also gives me 100 weapon damage by having the stacks built up. Once I get up to 3 stacks, that was part of the buff I didn't do earlier. Now I'm up to 7,400 just on my own. So then I have Barb Trap and Flawless Dawnbreaker to buff damage with the Undaunted passives. This also gives me Minor Force and procs the Hemorrhage status effect. So on my back bar, this gives the entire group Major, Brutality, and Sorcery. This will give me Poison status effect, which will help with recoveries. It also puts a very strong poison dot on a single target. This will help also proc the Mountain's Blessing passive on my back bar, because it is an Earthen Heart ability. So I have 2 Earthen Heart abilities on my back bar, and then 1 on my front bar. Then I have the Blockade of Fire to proc the Maelstrom buff. And then there's the increased fire damage from Engulfing Flames, which will increase 6% damage taken to the group. And then, of course, my last skill is the Dragonknight standard. So this buffs the group in several ways. You have the major brutality and sorcery by 20%. This allows everybody to run tri-pots instead of a weapon power pot. Increase flame damage, so everybody that's running a flame staff on their back bar, this is going to increase that damage by 6%. Then we have the powerful assault proccing skill here, increasing weapon damage by 307. And then we have an additional 195 weapon damage for 3 stacks of stagger. So increasing weapon damage by 307 plus 260 and then 195 from stagger. So that is a total of 762 weapon damage from just this group buff DPS build. Now for the slottables, always got to cover those. This is a staple to make sure that the team is at 100% crit damage. Okay, everybody gets a base of 50. That's highlighted here. Whatever you are adding to your build, you have 50%. It's right over there on the side on the right. This number is an addition to that 50. So for example, when I add barb trap for my minor force, now this is at 30% more. So it's 50 plus the 30 here. So that means I'm sitting at 80 crit damage. Well, how do we get to the crit cap? You add 11% from the perfected Lucent Echoes. So that takes us to 91. And then another 15 from Elemental Catalyst. And that means this character is running at 106 critical damage. Well, what's missing? Well, Minor Brittle comes from the other support DPS also, so that's another 10% crit damage, so that's 116 crit damage that this guy is going to get run on. I don't have him as a Khajiit, otherwise if I had another 12%, then he would be sitting at crit cap. So this is one of the characters in the team that's not at crit cap, but he's only one of them out of the DPS. The rest of them are all at crit cap 100% of the time. Penetration is 100% handled, and he's giving the group 700 weapon damage over the course of Powerful Assault, Spaulder of Ruin, Stagger, plus Engulfing Flames, and Ingenious Weapons. So this buffs the group quite a bit. Now I'll cover my other support roles that I have created.